Hey, what's going on everyone? Today we have the meta snapshot for patch 12.22. This is the last patch of Sett 8. It's kind of like a wild patch because they're adding in a second treasure dragon. We did the patch rundown earlier in the week. I do it every Tuesday when it comes out, or every other Tuesday. But this patch is also going to be for 3 weeks because we have the Thanksgiving break in America. So the Riot TFT team is going to be taking like 1 week off. And that's why we have like 3 weeks of a patch instead of 2. But we're going to go over all the comps I think that are good right now after the recent changes. And we'll probably update this one more time next week. And then that's going to be it for Sett 7.5. I will come out with a PvE list sometime this weekend. I can't promise you when. I hope it is tomorrow. But worst case, it'll be on Sunday. Also, the World Championships is this weekend as well. So we'll go over some meta predictions on that. It will be on an old patch. But if you like to watch that stuff, we'll have it down for you here. But starting off in the S tier, we have Guardian Daeja, Grave Seraphine, Dragons, Olaf Reroll, Jade, Kaisa Reroll, Mirage Daeja, Karma Reroll, Yone Reroll, and then Xayah, Darkflight Rengar, Lagoon, Ezreal, Zippy, Astral, Mage, Nomsy, Whispers, Built Different, and Vertical Cannoneers. This might be subject to change because it was a really big patch. A lot of people don't discover what's best in the first couple days, but these are our predictions so far, and if things change, we'll update it in the next week as well. But before we get into how to play every single composition, all right, we are back. I just realized I forgot to mention the B tier, Dragonmancer, Lee Sin, Graves, Nilah, and Darkflight Cannoneer, but let's get on into how to play each comp. So in the S tier, we have Guardian Daeja. This one is one of the newcomers recently because people were playing Daeja in all sorts of other builds, not quite with Idis. Idis turned out to be pretty decent tech, but it really depends how early you get your Daeja and your Idis because you can stabilize with them at 1 star, but obviously getting 2-star helps as well, but it's really just the Daeja. If you get an early Daeja, you can definitely go for this. He stabilizes you really hard during stages 3 and 4, and then you build up an economy later on, roll down for the 2-star versions, and go from there. Obviously, your late game, you're going to cap out with like a nice Bard, or you pivot into the Dragon composition. So some people might look at this tier list and be like, hey, aren't Dragons still the best comp? And yeah, they are, but you need to build into them. And this Guardian Daeja build is a great comp to like pivot into that build. So that's why it's so high up right now. Onto the next build, we have Grave Seraphine Pantheon, just a classic attack damage sword build. With the Morello Seraphine to support all the AP items. And all you need is like Zeeks and some items on Graves and you are going to be good to go. Not too much else to say there. You roll on 4-1, so it's really good at rolling on level 7, whereas other comps, like the one we just looked at before, more so like rolling at level 8 because they go for more 4-cost type of stuff. Kaisa Reroll, just a solid reroll comp. You just reroll at level 6 for Kaisa 3, and hopefully you get Zac along the way as well. Next comp up, we have the famous Dragon comps. We have the Aurelion Soul version and the Aoshin version. So Aoshin, I like Aoshin a bit more. The Koreans like Aurelion Soul a bit more. They're both good. It depends on who you hit. You kind of just see whichever one happens first, right? You don't really get a choice in the matter because sometimes TFT, they decide the fate of your life for you. I kind of like life, I guess. You just have to be prepared for both of them. So if you are prepared for both of them, you're obviously going to be in a much better position. It's like if you get into Harvard or Yale, like, okay, I guess you don't need to prepare for both of them because it's kind of the same thing. But let's say you get like a great engineering job or you get a great Wall Street job. You need to be prepared for both, right? So hopefully if you're just like smart or something, you'll do fine in both of them. But if you only like specialize in one, you didn't get that job and you have to go to the other, you might be in trouble. That's essentially the difference between Aurelion Soul and Aoshin. Both fantastic options, but you just kind of need to take whichever one you get, you know? But yeah, it's like just a fast 9 comp. Lots of requirements to get this. You know, you need to be born in the right household. You need to go to the right schools. Kind of the same thing for the for the Dragon composition. You need like a good early game. You need some econ augments and like lots of gold to play the comp. And you still need to get a bit lucky and pilot the mid game reasonably well to get to that state in the late game. Onto the next build, we have Olaf, Scale, Scorn, Whispers. So this one, I'm always like weird about this comp. It's either like the best thing ever or the worst thing ever, in my opinion. But the good thing about this comp is that there are a lot of different versions of it, so you're not like dead set on any unit. So that's one nice thing about this comp, but essentially you just reroll at level 7 for Olaf 3-star, so you roll down to 50 gold every single turn. You hit level 7 around... If you do full econ, you could hit it on stage 3-5. If you do like okay econ, you could hit it on 4-1 and start rerolling at that point. But you sometimes stabilize to get an Olaf 2 earlier on if you're low on HP. The next build up we have is the Soifen comp. This is just with the major attack damage dragon carries, Xiaoyu and Siphon. And then you'd use like a random unit to hold all the AP items. Sometimes it's Jace, and of course you could pivot into the dragon comp if you really want as well, depending if you have tank items or not for your Terra, and AP for your Aurelion Soul or Aoshin. But it's still pretty reliable overall. I'm not gonna say it's like the best comp ever, but it's still like a solid option if you get it early. So a lot of people wonder, like, how come in this set there are a lot more S tier comps compared to other sets? Some patches I only list like 2 or 3 S tier comps, but in these recent patches, like, there have been a lot more. So the reason why that happens is because a lot of the game is just augment dependent, and if you get the right augments, like, your comp's gonna be amazing. So if you get like mediocre augments but you're playing an S tier comp, it's only an A tier comp, right? So that's why there's so many in like the high places right now, because, or in the high tiers, it's really just because of augments. And I think this pattern may continue into the future as we play into set 8, because they're keeping augments there. The next build up we have is Mirage. Again, you really just play this to pivot into the dragon comps later on, but it's pretty solid, especially if you get an early Nunu 2. He really stabilizes your comp so hard because he's so hard for some teams to kill in the mid game. And like, he pairs up with Daeja, so like, he's the only tank you could really use other than Leona, but obviously 3 cost tanks are better than 1 cost tanks, so that's why he stabilizes you really well. We write out some stuff to do on each Mirage variant, so you guys can take a look at that in the future on my website, bunnymuffins.lol/meta. On to the next build, we have Karma Reroll. So Karma, it's kind of like Kaisa Reroll. You just reroll her on level 5 instead of level 6. Still pretty solid. It's more just to secure a top 4, and then later on you could kind of pivot into other things, but it's kind of hard because you're pretty much locked into Dragonmancers. But it just punishes a lot of other comps early if you hit Karma 3 really early. Also really augment dependent, so if you have like perfect augments, yeah, you're probably gonna win the game, right? Or at least get top 2. But if you don't, then you're gonna struggle a little bit. Yone reroll, same thing. Always look at the requirements on the website. That's why we have it up there. It's just so you guys can see like what's going to be necessary on a certain comp. So it's like I mentioned, all these comps, they have a little thing that they need, and we list it all out here. And yeah, Swiftshot emblem, scope weapons too, but there is one build I want you guys to try. So on Electrocharge Mirage, that's the one where every time you attack, you deal damage in a circle around you, and it's based on like your opponent's max health. You get that every time you attack. So if you get a Yone without Swiftshot, like, he's gonna be in melee range. Maybe you build QSS on him, I don't know. But he's gonna be dealing a lot of damage with like an 8 Mirage builds. I want someone to try that out. Let me know how it works, because it seems like it'll be pretty good, because he's just attacking so many times, especially with a Rage Blade, that I feel like he'll just get like a lot of procs of the electric overload. But maybe I'm wrong, you know? Onto the A tier, we have Xayah Ragewing and Guild Xayah. Pretty solid comp. It's kind of like the Settle comp that we talked about last week. It's the same this time as well. For this one, you want to level up to level 8 and roll on level 8. Generally, you don't want to roll on level 7 for this comp, because it just doesn't really help your end goal that much, so you really need to fast 8 with this. But obviously, there might be like 1 out of 10 games where you will roll on 7. But I'd say 9 out of 10 roll on level 8. Next build up we have is Darkflight Rengar. So this one, how do I describe this? Most people watching this are returning viewers, so you guys have already seen me talk about this comp. One of the positioning tricks that I like to talk about is, notice how we're on the 3rd row, but when we play Darkflight Cannoneers, we go all the way on the back row. The reason why it's okay to be on the 3rd row is because we're playing Assassins. Rengars jump to the back line, so having them a bit further up isn't a bad thing. The only unit that we have that's on the 3rd row that we care about is Aphelios, but we don't actually care about Aphelios because he's not really the carry of this comp. So the reason why you go on 3rd row is because you get extra Zeke's value, whereas in the back row, the Zeke's that you sacrifice is kind of wasted. So this is how you get like 1 extra Zeke proc. But overall, this is just another standard 3-cost reroll comp. You roll on level 7, you get Rengar 3, you get Swain 2. Rengar 3 is better than 2 Rengar 2s. A lot of people ask that question. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is to it. If you get double trouble, you won the lottery. Next up, we have Lagoon, Soam, and Nilah. So they changed the Lagoon loot table. Their biggest reward is now at 700 instead of 1,000. Apparently, spoiler alert, I asked people in the patch notes, like, what does that change? What is the reward? Apparently, you just get a lot of boots. and it makes your little legend bigger. So you guys can go ahead and try for that in your free time, but Soam is still a solid carry if you're playing for serious still, because I know some people are trying to get those last minute rankings. But yeah, Soam, solid, just a Morello applier, and then Nilah finishes everyone off. You could stabilize at level 7, but you could also go at 8. This is a bit more flexible of a comp than the other ones we went over, where like you really need to roll on 7 or you really need to roll at 8. For example, Grave Seraphine, 7 is super important. Xayah, level 8, super important, but this one you can kind of mix and match between the two depending on what your health total is. So it's actually a pretty good composition to kind of like learn how to play the game. Next build up we have is the Zippy carry. So Zippy, he's very similar to the Xayah build. You just do a carry Zippy. Either go full tank or full DPS on Zippy. Both work, and you kind of use him to stabilize you into late game pivots. You don't really want to hold on to Zippy. Even like Zippy 3 isn't that great, but he's just used to like pivot into other stuff. Next build up we have is Ezreal Reroll. So Ezreal, he's kind of like just like generic 1-cost reroll. I'm surprised it took us this long to see him. We really only saw him this patch and last patch, but not really for the rest of set 7.5. We saw him a bunch in set 7, but they changed his units a little bit, so people stopped playing him, but he's back now, so he should be good to go. And yeah, you just reroll for him. You get a bunch of the Guardians as well, because they're all low costed, and you hit them 3-star and go from there. Next build up we have is Astral Mages. So Astral Mages, you need to hit the Astrals early. So there's a game that I saw earlier this week, like we wanted to go Astrals, but we just weren't hitting the Astrals in stage 2, so you just can't go for it in those games, even if you have perfect items. But if you do have like okay items, but a lot of Astrals early, you could use it for either Econ or playing this comp. So I like using the Lux carry. You could also pivot into the Aurelion Soul Dragon board that we saw later on, because it is an AP comp. So if you hit Lux early, you could choose to forego 3-starring all the other Astrals and just power level up, and then replace the items on her, put it onto your Aurelion Soul or Aoshin instead, and you're going to do just fine there. Next build up we have is the Whispers comp. Pretty decent overall. I don't see that many people playing this, so it is one of those like more so sleeper comps. I wouldn't say it's like that great though, or that rewarding, but it's still decent. It's just like the Ragewing. It's just like the Pantheon Zyra Siphon type of carry build. Not too much else to say here. This one, you could roll on 7, which is nice. Built different, we're gonna skip that for now. Built different, I have a full video on that, so you guys can check that out in your free time. Next up we have the Vertical Cannoneer comp. So this one is one of the newer comps of the patch. So I've seen a couple of different versions. So one is with Aphelios Reroll, and another one is with Graves. Both of them work. Obviously, if you have Nomsy, that's really nice as well, because you could get like 4 or 6 Cannoneers with that. And just stat-wise, they run through a lot of teams. And Idis is a great solo tank, so you build all the solo tank items on him, such as Gargoyle Stoneplate and Dragonclaw. And pretty much they're good solo tank items, because the more people that attack them, the more stats that you get. Also, one thing to note on positioning here, this picture is wrong. You want to move everyone to the back row now, because Nomsy now has 4 range instead of 3. So just a quick note there. But pretty much the core is just at least 4 Cannoneers and then Idis. But if you have the Aphelios version, you could do a couple of different things as well. Next up, we have Nomsy. So Nomsy is a comp that rose up a bit recently. It was like kind of took a seat in the B tier last week, but I think it's back up now. So I think the double treasure dragon actually helps this comp out a bunch, because Nomsy really likes exact items, and if you have a lot of gold, because you get gold from the treasure dragons, it's easier to hit 3-star Nomsy. So I feel like it's a bit more viable this patch than last patch. But you pretty much just play any generic early game mage board, so that's a Lagoon or Astral opener. You full econ, and then you get a bunch of gold reroll for the Nomsy 3 at level 7, and then you're good to go. But pretty good comp. I love Nomsy. Probably the last time we'll ever see Nomsy ever, so definitely play it if you like it. B tier, we have Darkflight Cannoneers. Not too much has changed here, so I'll kind of just skip this. You might as well just play the Rengar version. Lee Sin, not too much has changed either. I'd rather play Kaisa reroll or Karma reroll, especially since they use very similar items. So I don't really have that much of a reason to play Lee Sin either. Pretty much the B tier, it's just like, you can play it, but there's not much benefit doing so, you know? But yeah, next thing I want to go over is the World's predictions. So we did update this last week, and this is based on the previous patch. So that's something that's very important. So obviously like Grave Seraphines, Soyfen, Daeja, those are going to be the bread and butters, but maybe Xayah is a bit underrated right now. So definitely want to look out for her, and I want to see how much reroll the pro players are actually going to play in the World Championships, because it's really risky to go for some of these. I think most people just are going to go for the dragon boards, but I'm pretty sure some of these reroll comps are going to sneak some wins. But let me know your thoughts on which comps you think will be seen in the World Championships. Let me know if you even watch the World Championships. Like, do people even care about this section? Because we could choose not to do this or keep doing it in the future if you guys are curious. Starting items, sword and bow, definitely going to be the best for the S tier comps. But AP is fine as well if you like playing Soam or going into dragon comps. But that's going to be pretty much it for me this week. So I'll try to keep it short. Next week, we'll probably do the last update, even though there are 2 weeks left in the patch. After the next week, 3 weeks from today, that is. But I want to be prepared for Set 8. So we're going to be coming out with Set 8 comps soon enough, sometime this weekend. And I'm also going to start streaming on Twitch once they allow me in PBE, because right now I'm like stuck in the queue for like the entire time it's been out. So hopefully I'll be unstuck soon and we can play some, probably do some viewer games, twitch.tv/bunnymuffins LOL. But yeah, I hope to see you guys there, but that's going to be it for me. I'll see you all later. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to share and subscribe, and of course smash that like button. Each like is an LP I gain before the next video.